On March 22, 2016, thousands of companies woke up to the same nightmare. Facebook's tools were failing. Netflix's builds were breaking. Spotify, Airbnb, PayPal, engineers everywhere were staring at the same cryptic error message. The world's biggest tech companies brought to a standstill, not by hackers, not by a natural disaster, not by a government, but by one frustrated programmer who deleted 11 lines of code. This is the story of how the modern internet turned out to be a house of cards, and the one man who decided to pull his card out. To understand what happened, you need to know a dirty secret about how modern software is built. Developers don't write everything from scratch. That would be insane. Instead, they borrow. There are millions of small, free, open-source packages, tiny pieces of code that solve tiny problems, and developers stack them together like Lego bricks. In the JavaScript world, all of these bricks live in one giant warehouse called npm need to format a date. There's a package. Need to resize an image. There's a package. And in 2016, one of those packages was called LeftPad. Its entire job, adding spaces or zeros to the left side of a string of text. That's it. 11 lines of code. A first-year student could write it in 5 minutes. Nobody thought about LeftPad. Nobody even knew it existed. But here's the thing about Lego towers. You never check which brick is at the bottom until it's gone. The man behind LeftPad was Azer Kasulu, a Turkish developer living in Oakland, California, a true believer in open source. Over the years, he had published 273 free packages for anyone in the world to use. One of them was a little project he called Kik. Unfortunately for Azer, there was also a messaging app called Kik, a Canadian company with over 200 million users. And in early 2016, Kik was preparing to launch its own developer tools on NPM under the name Kik. There was just one problem. Azer got there first. So Kik's representative emailed Azer and asked him politely at first to hand over the name. Azer said no. The tone shifted. The lawyers started mentioning trademarks. Azer's final answer was blunt, and it involved a word I can't say on YouTube. So Kik went over his head straight to NPM, the company running the warehouse. And NPM made a decision that would set everything on fire. They sided with the corporation. They took the name away from Azer and handed it to the company. For Azer, this wasn't about one package. This was betrayal. In his eyes, NPM had just proven that the community registry would fold the moment a lawyer showed up. So he did the only thing he had the power to do. He unpublished everything, all 273 of his packages, gone, including a tiny, forgotten, 11-line package called LeftPad. Within minutes, the internet started to crack. Because here's what nobody had realized. LeftPad wasn't just some obscure package. It was a dependency of a dependency of a dependency. It was buried deep inside Babel, a tool used by almost every serious JavaScript project on Earth. React, Node, thousands of companies. LeftPad was being downloaded millions of times a month, and nobody knew. Suddenly, every time a developer anywhere tried to build their project, the system reached down the tower for that one brick and found nothing. Builds failed at Facebook, at Netflix, at startups, at banks. Engineers lost hours in the middle of deploy day hunting a bug that made no sense. 11 lines of code that anyone could rewrite in 5 minutes. And yet the entire ecosystem had a hard dependency on this exact package, at this exact address. 2.5 hours into the chaos, NPM did something it had never done before, something many developers considered a line you do not cross. They undeleted Azer's package, against his will. They took another user's re-upload and restored LeftPad to its old address, like the deletion never happened. The fire was out, but the message it sent was almost worse than the outage. Your code on NPM was never really yours. The outage lasted a couple of hours. The questions it raised are still open today. NPM changed its rules. You can no longer instantly nuke a package that others depend on. But the deeper problem never went away. Modern software is still a tower of tiny bricks, maintained by strangers, often by one single unpaid volunteer. We saw it again in 2018, when a hijacked package tried to steal cryptocurrency. Again in 2021, when one logging library put half the world's servers at risk. Again in 2022, when a maintainer intentionally sabotaged his own packages in protest. LeftPad wasn't a freak accident, it was a preview. As for Azer, he never apologized and he never backed down. In his view, he didn't break the internet. He just revealed that it was already broken. And honestly, every company that lost money that day had a choice. They could blame one man in Oakland, or they could ask themselves why a trillion-dollar industry was standing on 11 lines of code nobody had ever bothered to read. The tower is still standing today, taller than ever. And most of the bricks still belong to strangers. If you want more stories about the hidden fragility of the tech world, like the typo at Amazon that took down half the internet, that video is right here. New stories every week. Subscribe so you don't miss the next collapse.